If your marriage needs help but you can't afford counseling, what do you do? Tired of reading marriage books and going to weekend getaways? Well, what if you could help your marriage through the power of sleep?
Welcome to the Only You Forever podcast. If you want to build a thriving, passionate marriage, we've got the research, the truth, and the answers you've been looking for. And now, here are your hosts, Caleb and Verlinda Simone Gendel.
Hey everybody, this is episode number 38, and we have a very special guest interview to kick off the new year. His name is Shawn Stevens, and he is a best-selling author and creator of the Model Health Show, featured as the #1 nutrition and fitness podcast in the world on iTunes. With a university background in biology and kinesiology, Shawn went on to be the founder of Advanced Integrative Health Alliance, a successful company that provides wellness services for both individuals and organizations worldwide. Shawn is also a dynamic keynote speaker who has spoken for TEDx, universities, and numerous organizations with outstanding reviews. We're going to jump into that interview I had with Shawn in just a moment. First, though, I want to tell you why I wanted to bring Shawn onto the show. This is our first episode for 2015, and it's that time of year when we think about priorities, maybe set some goals, and make New Year's resolutions. Well, if you're listening to this, I bet that building your marriage up is one of your goals. So how does Shawn, a health guy, tie into that? Well, I had a very simple goal in interviewing Shawn. He wrote an awesome book on sleep, which we talk about in the interview, but I wanted Shawn to help us understand how we can take care of our marriages by taking care of our sleep. That's right. Did you ever think that you could take your marriage to the next level by taking care of your sleep? Well, Shawn tells us how. So one last comment before we jump in. Shawn speaks out of a different worldview than I do, and you'll catch that as you listen, especially when he references the origins of life. However, he is an expert in sleep and shares my passion for helping marriages to succeed. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Hey, Shawn.
Caleb, how you doing?
Good to have you on the show here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, man. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. So, Shawn, back, I think we started this process quite a little while ago. And when I requested the interview, I think my suggestion at that time was, how can we take care of our marriages, our sex life, our family relationships by taking care of our sleep, as a kind of a New Year's resolution. So we're recording this before Christmas, but it's going to come out in the new year.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be super valuable whenever, people get their hands on it. But, there's also a tendency towards the new year being a fresh start, clean slate, and really a good time to implement things, But what I really pride myself on doing is giving people strategies that they can actually take and use long term rather than it kind of fizzling out over a little bit of time.
Awesome. No, that'd be great. So we did an audience survey back at the start of the fall, and one of the recurring themes on there was young couples and families feeling exhausted. And a number of them that made that comment also made the connection that this was taken away from deepening their intimacy. So most of our audience is in that 20 to 40-year-old range. I think, kids, careers, buying a home, all that stuff. How can we help these listeners make gains in their lives through the power of sleep? So what I thought we could actually begin with was just to go back one step and say, hey, does sleep matter? So let's make a case for sleep if you're good to go there, and then give some tools.
Absolutely. Well, I often tell people, when you're tired, your best friend can look like your worst enemy.
Yeah.
And I know we've all had this experience, just like when we're run down, we didn't get enough sleep, we're going to be more irritable.
Yeah.
And that's just an outer experience of something that's going on internal with your physiology.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what some of the research has shown.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, when you don't sleep, or when you get just one night of poor quality sleep, just 24 hours of sleep deprivation, what happens is you're going to get about a 14%. Well, let's start at the ground floor. You'll get a 6% decrease in the glucose reaching your brain. Okay. So basically you become a little bit dumber.
Okay.
Right? You also become a little bit more, the other parts of your brain start to take over. So what I'm talking about is 6% decrease in your prefrontal cortex. It's the more human part of our brain, the part of our brain that helps to make decisions, that helps us with compassion and understanding and patience, willpower. So even though you might want to say something, you don't say it, There's a lot of things you can't take back.
That's all that stuff that's good for relationships is shutting down there, right?
I mean, it happens, and so what happens there is, so there's a 6% decrease, but in particular, there's going to be a 14% decrease overall in the part of your brain that's really, really responsible for your decision making.
Okay.
So now, when I'm talking about the other parts of your brain taking over, basically we've got 3 brains that have evolved on top of one another.
Yep.
And I think it's a good, important point to talk about these. So we've got our amygdala, which is more of like the quote reptilian brain, right? This is a very, very primitive part of our brain, only concerned with survival.
Takes care of your heartbeat.
Concerned about, do you eat me or am I going to eat you? It's just like very, very primitive, looking for safety and threats all the time. But on top of that, we've also evolved a limbic brain. Okay. And so this is what pretty much all mammals have. This is why, dogs can feel emotion, this whole thing. And so the limbic part of the brain is concerned with the 4 F's, is what we talk about in our profession. The 4 F's are fighting, fleeing, feeding, and procreation. Okay. So those are the 4 F's. All right. And then on top of that, we have the more evolved human brain, the prefrontal cortex, which we've got the most developed of any being on this planet. And so what happens when you're sleep deprived, the amygdala does a hijack.
Okay.
Right? And it becomes very hypersensitive and hyper alert. Okay. And also the limbic brain starts to shift more towards feeding. Okay. Feeding and fleeing a situation. It doesn't want to be bothered. Right. And I know that everybody's also experienced this as well. So again, I'm just giving a little slight glimpse into how this does, in fact, interrupt your physiology just by being tired. We can go on and on with the data and the importance that this has as well. But of course, we want to get into some of the strategies to help people with it.
Yeah. It's kind of like who knew that there was such a big impact from missing a little bit of sleep, eh?
Yeah. I mean, sleep, this is the thing. I want people to really walk away understanding that sleep is known as the anabolic state. This means that it's the only process or only state of a human being that helps to rebuild and rejuvenate you.
Okay.
Being awake is catabolic, period. Something is breaking down, but we need both. It's a counterbalance. And in our lives, especially in a relationship context, having a family, if we've got 10 things to do and sleep is one of them, we tend to just omit the sleep.
Yeah.
We'll just be like, I'll get to that later. Not understanding that the sleep is actually going to make all the other things that you're doing when you're up and functioning so much easier and so much more joyful. It's going to be hard. You've got to kind of force yourself and try to be more compassionate and understanding and patient, loving versus just being your natural state.
Yeah. Yeah, Shawn, that's so helpful because it just, we all experience that where we have to really kind of push ourselves to be how we'd rather be than when we're more naturally like that when we're rested. And, one interesting thing I found, and I just love the brain science you're talking about, this is coming a little bit more from the relationship side, is in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine, there's an article in 2010, and they were saying that men, when they had poor sleep, that predicted more negative ratings of their interactions with their spouse the next day.
Right. Yeah.
That was not seen in the female spouse, but in the female spouse, it was the reverse association. So daytime interactions affected nighttime sleep. So if she had a bad relational day with her spouse, she couldn't get to sleep. And if he had a poor sleep, it was negative ratings of the next day's interactions. So it's almost like you can get into this vicious cycle.
Yes, absolutely. It's so interesting. I'm so glad that you brought that up because these are things that I've seen in clinical practice.
Okay.
And also, I want to point one thing out really quickly that just kind of came up while you were talking is the fact that even if we're learning something valuable, like right now, people are tuned in and they're learning some different insights and skills that they're going to be able to use in their life from here on out. However, it's not going to really become a part of you unless you sleep. Because there's an interesting thing that happens called memory processing when you fall asleep, in REM sleep in particular. So this is when your short-term memories, so things you learn today become your long-term memories.
Okay.
So they actually become a part of you. So when you're missing out on that, again, it doesn't matter how much compassion training you do or how many books you're reading, the 5 love languages or whatever it might be, it's going to be more difficult for it to become a part of who you are if you're not resting and getting recovered. And also, so just to kind of piggyback on what you just brought up, we also have to understand we have a different template. The male brain and female brain is wired up differently, and it is what it is. It's not that one is better or worse or anything like that. It's more so that they're complementary to each other.
Yeah.
You can see there's a yin and yang there of how you just describe that situation, And so we have to understand. And here's another interesting thing is that most relationship issues have a lot to do with money or being tired and worn out. Okay.
Hmm.
These are like the two major things, right? And when you're tired and worn out, this is when you tend to make poor choices.
Yeah.
And I actually put into my book, there was a physician study. These physicians actually do a task. Okay. So they did a task.
Yep.
Then they sleep deprived them. Just one day of sleep deprivation. Had them come back and do the same task. They made 20% more mistakes.
Wow.
And it took them 14% longer.
Wow.
Okay. Doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
All right. And we're doing this every day in our day-to-day lives. We're thinking that if I just work more, I'll get there.
Yeah.
Not understanding there's a difference between working and being effective.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not being effective, it's just creating so much more unconscious stress and conscious stress as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just going to fizzle up and it's going to bust at some point. So this is why this stuff is so important.
So, and you mentioned stress there too. That was, correct me if I'm wrong, but sleep is really one aspect of stress regulation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we don't regulate the stress, we can have more disturbed sleep, which can lead to more negative outcomes on the relationship side too, right?
Yeah, we can actually, this is a good segue into some of these principles.
Yeah.
And one of the big catchwords today, as far as stress is concerned, is this stress hormone called cortisol. So everybody's talking about cortisol. My cortisol's up. I've got cortisol issues. I've got adrenal fatigue, which your cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands. So what is this whole cortisol issue? Well, cortisol is so important. It's so valuable. It's just when it gets out of balance is when it's a problem.
Okay.
You need cortisol just to stand up.
Okay.
You know, like you need that. However, when your body's in a hyper tense state, so basically fight or flight is on all the time, that's when you can get into some serious trouble. And here's some of the issues with cortisol. So cortisol can do this really interesting thing where it can break your muscle tissue down through a process called gluconeogenesis.
Okay.
So it means sugar creation. Okay. New creation. It can break your muscle tissue down and turn it into sugar. Okay. And when sugar's active in your bloodstream, that turns on a hormone called insulin. Insulin is your body's fat storing hormone. So cortisol can literally turn your body from a leaner body into a fatter person just from stress. Okay? And I also tell people, you can either eat your way fat, you can move your way fat, or you can stress your way fat.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people don't know about that third one. They'll be eating a great diet, exercise, and probably too much, adding to the stress.
Yeah.
Wonder why things aren't really budging. And it's because of this stress issue. It's a serious thing. So what the research indicates as far as the sleep is concerned, I mean, there's so many different facets of this, but let me think of something really interesting to share. Okay. Here's a great one.
Sure.
You've probably heard of people shouldn't. Here, matter of fact, let's be real basic with this. Melatonin, right? Melatonin is known as the sleep hormone, but it's not. That's a misnomer. It's really the get good sleep hormone. Okay. It helps you to get deeper, higher quality sleep, more anabolic sleep. Melatonin is the antithesis of cortisol. Okay. So when melatonin is up, cortisol's down. If cortisol's up, melatonin is down.
Okay.
Okay. So if people have a higher stress level, their sleep quality is going to suck.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very difficult for them to get the more rejuvenative stages 3, 4 sleep, okay, that they really need to recover. All right. So this is why you absolutely must have a stress management practice, as well as one of the tips. So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and share a tip right now.
Yeah. Let's jump into, how do we get out of that cycle? Because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, my stress is up. I can't sleep. And because I can't sleep, I get more stressed. Or stressed more easily, right?
Exactly.
So how do I break out of that? How do we,
So here's how one of the strategies of breaking the vicious circle. In my book, Sleep Smarter, I've got a diagram actually indicating and showing the normal cortisol rhythm. Okay. So how a normal person secretes cortisol through the day. And basically right around the hours of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., it's at its highest peak.
Right. I remember that.
Okay. And then it gradually declines throughout the day and bottoms out in the evening, say somewhere around 8 to 10 at night.
Okay.
That's when melatonin is going to be the highest. Well, it should be. Right.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people are what we call tired and wired. So they've got these flipped. They're waking up tired. Right. And at nighttime, they just feel like they're just turned on. They're up.
Yeah.
So how do you reset this so that you can actually change your body, get the rejuvenative sleep you really want, and feel good and be a nicer partner, a more loving partner?
Yeah.
One of the things we can do, we've got to help to encourage that cortisol spike in the morning. Okay. Because that will help to reset the whole template. So there's a study done at Appalachian State University. They took exercisers and had them exercise at 3 different times. One group exercised at 7 a.m., Second group exercised at 1 p.m. Third group exercised at 7 p.m. at night.
Okay.
What they discovered was that the morning exercisers got up to 75% more time in the deep stages of sleep. Okay. Exercising in the morning can literally help you sleep better at night.
Okay.
Up to 75% more time. That's incredible. That nugget in and of itself.
Sorry, I was hoping you were going to say drinking Starbucks in the morning was going to help you sleep better.
We did talk about caffeine too, but so let's come back to that in a second.
Okay.
It's a good one because it's important.
Yeah.
So what I want people to walk away with is understanding that by you exercising in the morning, you're encouraging that normal cortisol spike, because when you're exercising, cortisol is going to be up.
Okay.
All right. It's just how it is. If you're exercising at night, cortisol is going to be up. So what's that going to do to melatonin? Ground floor. Right? So it's not a good idea, especially if you have a history of sleep problems, to exercise late in the evening, especially like there are very few things that I would use this 4-letter word hate. Yeah. But I hate 24-hour gyms, man.
Okay.
It's just like, it's so counterproductive to being healthy.
Yeah.
You know, I don't hate them. Let me take it back.
It kind of fakes you out, right?
I dislike them.
It fakes you out because you think you're doing something really good for yourself at those late hours, but you're actually kind of shunting your benefits out the back door at the same time, by the sounds of it.
And because of our life structure, with all the stuff we have going on today, some people feel that it's the only time they can get it in.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that if you're not sleeping, you're not going to get the results anyways. Okay. So one of the biggest tips is do some physical activity in the morning. And this does not mean you have to hit the gym in the morning hours. You can do so many different things. So it's wintertime here.
Yeah.
And I live in the Midwest. So I've got my rebounder. So it's like a little mini trampoline instead of getting out. Because during the nicer months, I'll get out and like do a power walk for 20, 30 minutes, listen to an audio book or podcast, like this. Yeah. And just kind of learn while I burn is my whole kind of tagline that I put out there.
Yeah.
But right now, I'll just hop on the rebounder. Lymph radically helps to cleanse your lymphatic system. Also, it's one of those things that really helps to tone up the midsection. Like if you actually are jumping on that rebounder, you put your hand on your belly, you feel those muscles are turned on. NASA, they're like the smart guys, right? Literally, we say like rocket scientists, you know. Are they a rocket scientist? Yes. They said that rebounding is by far the best human exercise because of something called G-force. When you're rebounding, so when you hit the trampoline surface, you've got pressure like 20 times more your body weight going on to all of your cells. And then you come up and you're literally weightless.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's making all the cells in your body basically do like power push-ups, right? So it's really, really powerful stuff. So you can do that, a little rebounding. You can do some yoga, like some more power yoga. If you've only got 4 minutes, you can do Tabata. You know, there's so many different things that you can do in the morning. It's just finding, you can get up and dance. You know, you can do whatever it is that feels good to you, but this is going to help you to sleep better at night if you do this activity in the morning. And just kind of driving yourself, if you're not, quote, a morning person, to start doing this initially, this can transform your health entirely.
Awesome. Cool. So that's a gain. And, you know, we're often thinking about that exercise in the new year, right? And I'm glad you mentioned the rebounder because in my part of the world, it's discouraging to go outside in the morning. It's like minus 30, right? So it's good to be able to do that. Now, let's touch on the coffee thing before I wanted to go a little bit about sleeping together and some of those dynamics, but let's touch on that coffee thing for a few minutes. That's popular with a lot of us, right? Oh, yeah.
All right. So, really quickly though, I mentioned about you're not going to get in shape if you're not sleeping. This is because, oftentimes when somebody goes to the gym, and my question is just for everybody listening, are you in better shape after you do a workout? And a lot of times just kind of unconsciously we'll think that we're in better shape after we work out.
Yeah.
The fact is you're in better shape when you walk in the gym than after the workout. If I was to take you in and get your blood work done, I do a hormone panel right after your workout, you would look like there's something wrong with you probably.
Okay.
You'd have your biomarkers for inflammation would be up, stress hormones would be up, but it's not that it's something bad happened. You just did a good workout. So this is called a hormetic stressor. You actually change. So you're in worse shape now after you work out, but your body changes while you're asleep. This anabolic state, the rebuilding of you happens while you're asleep. It cannot happen while you're awake. All the nutrition, all of the water drinking, all that stuff helps your body to recover and change while it's at rest, total rest in deep anabolic stage 3 and 4 sleep. All right, so that's the big secret, guys. You've got to get the sleep to actually change your body and get the results.
You have to pair the sleep.
Back to the coffee. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying you got to pair the sleep with the exercise. Like they really have to go hand in hand.
Yes. Yeah. It's part of the 3 pillars. The nutrition, the exercise, and the sleep. Those things. Without one of the, it'll have a tendency to fall over. If you look at it like a table.
Yeah.
Once you bring that third component in there, it's very stable.
That's really valuable because we often forget about that. But go ahead, let's get to our coffee, our beloved coffee. Go easy on us here.
Oh man, I mean, I'm a fan of caffeine.
Okay.
I enjoy caffeine. Caffeine has a long history of resonance with the human body.
Yeah.
Thousands of years of documented use. Mm-hmm. But in our world today, it's become a necessity instead of like kind of like a tradition or something that's more of a ritualistic process. It's just like unconscious. I need the coffee to function.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a crutch.
And so what I encourage people to do, actually, I dedicated a chapter to this, is talking about having a caffeine curfew. And this is because, very simply, caffeine has a half-life of about 8 hours. So what that means is if you consume 200 milligrams of caffeine, say, for example, like a super mocha latte, whatever, Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
200 milligrams of caffeine. 8 hours later, half of it, so 100 grams, is still active in your system, and it's a nervous system stimulant. Okay. So that can create radical disruptions in your sleep quality. And actually, I cited a study showing that they took people, they had them consume caffeine right before bed, literally right before they go to sleep, 3 hours before and 6 hours before. And they noted that even 6 hours out had notable loss of sleep quality. As a matter of fact, they got 1 hour less total deep sleep from having caffeine 6 hours before bed. All right. Like that is crazy and huge to notice. And so what happened was they did that based off of brainwave monitoring, right? So monitoring their actual sleep patterns with equipment. So the objective, and they also did subjective. Mm-hmm. So what the person felt, they felt like, oh, I got 8 hours of sleep is no problem. But they actually lost an hour of sleep. This is where we start to get into this confusion. Okay. We feel like we're okay, but we have this gravitation towards, let me get some more caffeine.
Yeah.
And we start to create this another vicious circle. To where you need it to actually function.
So you need that 4 o'clock kind of push through the end of the workday, but you're actually kind of sabotaging yourself for the next day.
Exactly. Yeah. And you start the whole thing over again. So what I encourage people to do is have a caffeine curfew. If you're going to consume caffeine, it depends on your metabolism for caffeine. It's not 8 hours exactly for everybody. Some people process it faster. Some are super sensitive.
Okay.
So I encourage people to get your caffeine in the early part of the day. So we're talking before noon, preferably, or at least stopping by 2 o'clock. If you're planning on getting to bed between, 10 or 10 to 11, 12 o'clock. It's a really simple thing, but it can help you a lot. And you might not necessarily feel like you have that extra charge in the middle of the day at first, but your body will readapt. And I break all that down, the science about how that actually functions in the body in the book. So have the caffeine, but just respect it, and also encourage you to cycle it too.
Right.
So take some time and get your body off of it as well, so that your receptor sites for the caffeine can kind of get refreshed and it actually feels good. Because you probably had this experience of, like when you first have that caffeine, you're like, this is incredible. And then after having it consistently, you don't get that same kind of pleasure, same kind of response. So that's because your body's become adapted to it, So by cycling it, you can get re-energized when you have it.
Awesome. Thanks, Shawn. And we'll definitely, we're going to put a link in our show notes for your book too. I read it myself. It was a great book. What I love about your book is it's like you can read one chapter at a time. You don't have to sit down and capture the whole thing, but everything stands on its own. It's a super book to read.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lots of good stuff in there. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Now, let's talk about the bedroom. One of the things I'm wondering about in the bedroom is, what about sleeping together? What if your spouse is one of those spouses that just burns hot through the night? And you talk about temperature a little bit too. And I just, on one of your recent episodes on your podcast, the Model Health Show, which is a great podcast, by the way, for our listeners, if you're looking for another health podcast. I believe you're talking to a gentleman, and there was something that ran into his bed under the covers, and he could cool his body down with that even.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's kind of a side note, or what's your thoughts on having a hot spouse?
He's got like a cooling pad. So this is Dr. Kelly Starrett, and he's one of the smartest guys on the planet. You know, his understanding of human anatomy and physiology. But he's just one of those people, he runs hot, and he would be tossing and turning at night. He's doing all these other good sleep hygiene things, but just his body temperature would cause him to not get the most rejuvenated sleep possible. So he's got this pad. He sleeps on like a cool pad.
Okay.
And he's just like, man, I'm out. Like I am dead to the world, when I'm asleep now. And that's kind of one of the things he figured out that was a great trigger for him.
Okay.
But more so, before you even get to that point, there are some things you can do. And yeah, I do talk about this because in the evening, say around 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we have a normal, natural drop in our core body temperature to help facilitate sleep. Okay. So what they discovered is that people with chronic sleep problems, also they're known as insomniacs, or people with insomnia symptoms, they tend to run warmer in the evening around that time because their body's gotten out of sync with nature. Okay. And so this is all the stuff we're talking about really is that we are a part of nature, man. We just forget that, And so these are small things that help us to get synced back up with the natural rhythms of the planet. Yeah. And this is not some airy-fairy woo-woo. This is real science.
Okay.
You are part of nature. You're part of this planet. You cannot exist. One cannot exist without the other. If the earth is operating with you being a part of it, you have to fall in line with what it's doing. Okay. Or you're going to have pain. Right?
Yeah.
So anyways, one of the great tips is, so with this normal natural drop in core body temperature, if we're keeping our house too warm, it can fight that. So I encourage people to keep it cooler, especially at night in the bedroom. What the research indicates, and this is going to sound like kind of crazy for people, but between 60 and 68 degrees is the spot people, that's what the research indicates. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Now, I would say let's go up to like 72, maybe would be reasonable. And it just depends on the person too. Some people they're totally with that. But some people my wife is actually from Kenya. So she's just kind of her genetics has evolved in a warmer climate.
Yeah.
So in wintertime, for years, she just had this little space heater and it became like her part-time lover. It was not me. It was the space heater battling it out. Right.
Yeah.
But now, because also her hormones have changed as she's gotten older and also having a child. And now that's gone, but she still has her blanket.
Okay.
And so at night, I do keep it cooler. And what she does is she just wears warm socks to bed. This is usually your extremities, whereas I'm sleeping with just, maybe some boxers on and she's sleeping kind of like she's got a little outfit on and her little socks. And we both get equally great sleep now.
Right.
So just finding that balance and
just matching that up.
Being it cool in the bedroom overall is going to help everybody sleep better.
Yeah. I know if we can crack our window open a little bit, it sure helps. Even in the wintertime. And I think the fresh air is good for you too, just for cleansing the air in the house.
Absolutely. The air carries ions. So when we're breathing, it's not just oxygen that we're getting. We're also getting ionic elements, that are in the air.
Yep.
And they're supposed to be electrically charged. That electrons need energy. Okay. But what happens is the air literally can start to become stale and stagnant because it's not moving. Air is we would really, again, evolve to be outdoors. And even if we're indoors, to have circulation happening. So when we block that off in our little boxes that we live in, the air becomes stagnant and it's less energizing. And this is why if people go to the ocean or they go to a waterfall, you just feel invigorated, you feel rejuvenated by being in those conditions. It's because there's so many more ionic elements that we're consuming. So just by you keeping a window open, cracking the window, a fan can help to circulate the air. And then also in the book, I talk about air ionizers are becoming more popular. And also just the basic humidifier can help out a lot.
Right.
So any of these things, these are helping to create a sleep sanctuary.
Cool.
By having these things present in your bedroom.
That's awesome, Shawn. Super helpful advice there. Now, last point just to ask you about before we wrap it up. Let's talk about sexual intimacy and couples. So you mentioned the Big O, I believe, is one of the titles of one of your chapters, right? So sex has an impact on our sleep as well.
Yeah. It's so funny that in our lexicon today, it's called sleeping together, right? It's because prior to, kind of our modern way of living, especially with guys, after they would have an orgasm, they'd fall asleep, but also women as well. And it's because of when you have an orgasm, you secrete a cocktail of chemicals ranging from prolactin to oxytocin, right? Which is like the cuddle hormone, right?
Yeah.
Also, serotonin, endorphins, and caffeine, things that make you feel good and feel relaxed. And so what the research indicates is that when they took laboratory animals and injected them with prolactin, they became tired immediately. Okay. And so men actually, when they have an ejaculation through intercourse, they secrete up to 4 times more prolactin than if they do it via masturbation. So this is why when you're with your partner and you have sex, you're going to have a much more greater propensity towards falling into deeper, higher quality sleep. All right. Wow. And the same thing goes with women as well, but it takes oftentimes more communication, care, attention, to make sure that, and in the book I actually cited a study showing that I believe it was 39% of the women who were surveyed that masturbate do it for the purpose of stress relief. Okay. Being able to relax so they can sleep. Right? So it's just like one of those interesting studies. And so you guys can work together. And everybody's happy. And also everybody's getting great sleep as well. It's an important part of any relationship. And by the way, I cannot leave without sharing this little piece of data. It was discovered that couples who have a TV in their bedroom have 50% less sex.
Really?
50%.
Wow.
So the guys listening right now, pause this, go get the TV out.
Get the TV out of your bedroom.
Your love life so much because it's a distraction.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And also we talk about the different aspects and effects that it has on your sleep. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries, man. I was just going to say, it's giving you that white light too, right? Which is something you talk about, not getting the white light from the LCD screens that we see now too.
That reminds me of that movie, Carol Ann.
What's that?
Poltergeist. Yeah. Oh, creeps me out still.
You'll have to fill me in on that one.
Oh, you don't know about Poltergeist? Oh, man.
No, sorry.
Well, it's a classic here in the U.S. I don't know if in Canada it's a little bit different, but that is like, just don't watch it. Matter of fact, forget I said it. It's so creepy. You don't even watch it. All right?
Don't watch the movie?
Like when I was a kid. Yeah.
Don't put the TV in your bedroom. Okay.
Yeah.
And Shawn, we're going to throw some links in the show notes here, definitely, so people can find out more about what you're teaching on health and sleep. But from your perspective, what's the best way that our listeners or readers that come to our website, they can learn more from you? Where would you like us to direct them?
Well, definitely my home online is the ShawnStevensonModel.com.
Okay.
And you can just, Google me, Google Shawn Stevenson. I'll come up. It's Shawn, SHAWN, Stevenson, STEVENSON. And the greatest resource that's out there is the Model Health Show, which we're on iTunes, Stitcher, all that good stuff. We have hundreds of thousands of downloads of the show every single month. And a lot of people, 170 countries. I didn't even know there's that many countries, but people are really getting their hands on this information because each episode is like a master class.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can literally retrain the way that you think and get strategies. And we make it all simple, instead of making it so complex and, somebody's smarter than you and you can't do certain things or you're going to figure it out on your own. We make it so simple because that's what great teachers do is they make you feel smart.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Because we're all so gifted and talented, man.
Yeah.
And so that's the other place. And I'm pretty new to social media. I confess, but people can find me at Twitter. I'm at Shawn Model on Twitter.
Okay.
At Shawn Model on Instagram. Somebody pulled me to the computer and put me an Instagram account. I'm always sharing cool stuff there now. So
good for you.
Those are the different places people can find me.
Okay. Well, really appreciate it, Shawn. And I can just affirm what you said, that you do give a tremendous amount of valuable content in your episodes. And I can tell there's a ton of research and work that you put in. And as one of your listeners, I appreciate it. So I want to thank you as well. And thank you for joining us today on the Only You Forever podcast. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good. Thanks, Shawn.
Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I sure did. And Shawn was a very gracious, easy person to interview. Plus, we got to geek out a little bit on the research, which is always awesome. Remember to check out Shawn's book, Sleep Smarter, as well as his health show on iTunes. I'll have links to both of those on our website at oyf.link/38. For Linda and I, hope you have an absolutely blessed new year. And remember, our goal is to help build as many thriving, passionate marriages as we can. If this episode was helpful to you, can you please open up iTunes on your Mac or PC right away, search for Only You Forever, go to the Reviews tab, click the button that says Write a Review. That helps raise our show's ranking in iTunes, which helps us to reach more people. Thanks so much, and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the OnlyYouForever.com podcast. Please help us reach and influence a wider audience by rating and reviewing our podcast at onlyyouforever.com/love. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.